Hey all, and welcome back to Fuzzy Dutchy Gaming, and a new video looking at Blade Vortex in SSF as a league starter. The idea of the build is fairly simple. It's to pick up some Hrim Sorrow gloves to get 50% of the physical damage converted to cold, and then there's a mastery in the cold tree that gives you 40% conversion as well. So you get 90% converted to cold fairly easily. The gloves are super common, and at some point in your playthrough you're going to pick them up. They find all the time, you'll find them in Heist. Sometimes they drop in Act 1, you can get them in Rituals really easily, and other unique mechanics as well. So I decided at the start to go Freezing Pulse and Holy Flame Totem until level 12. Then I picked up Creeping Frost with LMP, Frost Bomb, and Flame Totem. Now I did a lot of farming in Act 1 to try and get the unique gloves. Didn't have any joy, but it meant I was a few levels over the cap for the zone. So that meant I had the currency to craft some cold damage wands, and it made Acts 1 and 2 and 3 really easy. So I basically beelined straight for Fizz converted to cold and switched to Blade Vortex as soon as I got faster casting in Act 2. Now, thinking about it, I probably should have stuck with Creeping Frost until level 38 when I pick up Unleash, but Blade Vortex did okay. In Act 4, as I say, that's when I picked up Unleash, and the skill felt a lot better, especially once got the first lab completed. Then I took the Ascendancy that gives enemies minus cold resistance, and that along with Frostbite, Vortex with Bone Chill linked to it, and Frost Bomb just puts the bosses on really low resistances, and you can freeze them easily and you can kill them really quickly. So from Act 5 onwards, I started picking up some crit nodes and power charge nodes, getting ready to take the power charge Ascendancy when I did the second lab. And then once I did that, I switched in a power charge on crit gem. I didn't have huge crit chance. It's probably about 40-45% with Flask, but it's plenty enough to add decent amount of damage. Once you pick up a few power charge nodes, you can have like 6 or 7 power charges in Act 6 or 7, and it feels really good. Now, I spent quite a bit of time in Heist, again, looking for the gloves, but also just some currency, so I don't have any issues with doing maps or crafting gear and flasks and stuff like that. So I didn't finish the campaign until around level 69 or 70. Once I'd done a fair bit of Heist, I did a little bit of Foothills farming for some Betrayal, but got really bored of just resetting the zone. So once my resist was sorted, I then went and finished the campaign. Overall, because it was SSF, I wasn't in any rush at all to do it, and I actually really enjoyed it much more than when in a training environment you're kind of rushing through to be as quick as you can. I was probably including high sort of 8 to 9 hours getting through the campaign, and I really enjoyed it. It was then though, once we went to maps, that it dampened my excitement and enjoyment a little bit. The DPS on the Falling was still really good, and Clear felt okay with Herald of Ice. You get a few explosions. The massive issues with the build, which there's a lot of builds that have this same issue. First one is obviously Arch Nemesis mods. And early on, bad combinations just get you killed. The safety of this build, because it's really hard to get life and loads of defenses because of how sparse the tree is, your defense is freezing and chilling everything. Early on, if you get some mods, maybe like a Soul Eater mixed in with one that can't be chilled, you're basically dead. And then because we don't really pick up any armor on gear, there's no point going Determination early on. You'll only have like 1k armor from it. So you have to go Grace. And then it's really hard to get Sustain on spell builds in SSF. So I ended up having to throw Vitality into the mix as well. It only gives me about 300 to 400 regen a second, but without it, I don't have any regen whatsoever. And my only Sustain is a Life Flask and 2% life on kill from one of the nodes on the tree. And that's the main issue with the build, is survivability mixed with maneuverability. So even with 30% movement speed boots, when you don't have a Flask up and you don't have Onslaught, the build feels super sluggish when you move in. You're dual wielding with wands, so you don't have any options for non-cooldown movement skills, so you're pretty much stuck with Flame Dash. What this means is if you don't have Flask charges, which early on mapping, some of the map layouts in this league are really sparse, so it is quite difficult to keep up your Flask charges all the time. If you then run into a bunch of ranged monsters that are off screen, you're likely going to die before you even know what's hit you. AoE from Blade Vortex at the beginning is not brilliant, it's pretty much in melee range. Even once you've got the power charge Ascendancy nodes, it's still pretty much melee range, and this was a constant problem throughout and caused most of my deaths. I have to say the main culprit that pretty much killed me in every map, and they seem to turn up in every map, are the reworked skeletons from Act 1, which fire multi-projectile spells. These basically took me from full life to dead instantly, and they were pretty much off-screening me. I say, because I don't have much movement speed outside of when my flasks are up, and I've got a Flame Dash that has a cooldown, whenever these guys turned up in maps, I was pretty much dying to them. Had another couple of BS deaths where there is a Arch Nemesis mod, I'm not sure what it is, that when you kill all the pack, it summons a Beyond boss. So one of the big bosses got summoned in like 2 of the maps I did, and they just annihilated me. Other than that, when you can keep your flasks up, the build feels really fun. It clears well. Bosses get chilled and frozen, so you can literally just stand there on a boss and you've got no danger whatsoever because you won't be able to get an attack or a spell off before he dies. Now, the footage behind is the skeletons, which were causing me problems. The reason I've reloaded it to the map is because I just got off-screened. And as I say, that's why the build feels bad. At least with a melee build, you're going to have some form of movement skill at your disposal, whether it's leap slam, shield charge, whirling blades. If you're a raider, you're going to have like frenzy charges, maybe onslaught, so you're going to be a lot quicker. This witch doesn't have any of that. There is no mobility whatsoever, and that's what makes the build feel really, really bad. So I did end up getting my Hrim Sorrow gloves from Ritual, and that boosted my DPS quite a lot, but it does lower your survivability, as the gloves are pretty much bare bones when it comes to stats. The idea is, if you can get to sort of later tier red maps, you're going to look for a decent pair of Unveiled Syndicate gloves. I think you can get up to 35% Fizz converted as cold, and then you can get an Eldritch implicit on the glove to take the last 15%, and then that gives you 100% Fizz converted to cold, and hopefully gives you much better stats and overall useful attributes on your gloves than a pair of Hrim Sorrows. Now, I was getting so fed up with the movement, I actually tried dropping one wand and going shield charge to test it out, and the movement when mapping felt loads better. I still felt like the damage was okay, but you do lose an absolute ton of DPS from not dual wielding wands. There was also a bit of an issue with my Vortex on left click. That didn't seem to go off all the time, even in between shield charges, so that weakens the DPS again. If anyone's got any advice and has played this sort of build before, in terms of getting into movement speed and maneuverability, it'd be much appreciated because I'm really, really struggling. In regards to content, a lot of the stuff felt really good. Like Harvest actually felt really good. You get Vile Blade Vortex, which you can set off just before they get released. You can then pre-stack your 10 Blade Vortex, and you chill most things. Again, though, you get the wrong Arch Nemesis mods, and you're probably dead. The build is chill immune from the Ascendancy, and it's shock immune from a Power Charge Mastery. And when you pick up Aberrath Pantheon, just the first bit gives you 60% less Ignite duration. So that handles the normal ailments really, really well. So at the moment, the character's level 80 going on to 81. I'm probably going to carry this character on because I don't have anything else to do with the rest of the league. So I'll just farm some low to mid tier yellow maps, get myself to mid to late 80s. The idea from here is basically just go all spell suppression nodes, then hit Harvest and Rog to get some suppression gear. Then once I'm 100% suppression capped with a bit more life from levels, then those skeleton mages aren't going to be any issue anymore because they're not going to be able to kill me. And it's just going to feel a lot better knowing that I don't necessarily need to worry that I'm going to flame dash and then suddenly a mob appears on my screen and the pack one-shot me from spell projectiles. Now, I'm not sure how I'm going to get DPS in this build, though, because realistically, you want 2 Void batteries for this sort of power charge stacking Blade Vortex build, and in SSF, it's pretty much impossible. Like, I've never had 1 drop, and I've played quite a lot of SSF, and realistically, you need 2, and that's probably like on par with dropping a mirror or something like that. So I'm going to keep plugging away, and I will bring out a final upgrade video where I bring out POBS to show leveling and skills. Not that I'd ever recommend doing it as a league start in SSF. I think you could league start it in trade pretty comfortably, actually. But you probably need to hit up Heist for maybe 3 or 4 hours, get a few hundred chaos, get some spell suppression gear, a couple of void batteries, and then that's going to take you to red maps. It's something I have already tested out in standard footage in the background. This is a character with basically 2 void batteries and a Legion jewel to get extra damage from power charges. Don't even have fully leveled gems, and it was comfortably doing T16, Conqueror, and Guardian maps. It's not cheap, though. I would think it's probably 5 to 6x even on day 1 or 2 to get the gear, and that might take a while in mapping, and we don't know what the lead mechanic's going to be like. So you realistically, if you want to start this sort of build, you probably, unless you're really, really good at the game, you're going to have to grind a bit of heist to get some raw chaos, maybe drop a couple of uniques that you can sell, and then you can just basically build into the character and just literally go straight to red maps without changing your gear. And it actually works really well for heist, this build. Once you get the Val skill going, then it's great for doors, because that's the worst thing about heist is when you're waiting for a door to unlock and you can see all of the Arch Nemesis mods behind that door waiting to basically all hit you at the same time and one-shot you. With this, just before the door opens, you can drop 2 of your Vile Blade Vortexes. They'll go and demolish all of the enemies behind the door. You then get your flask charges and you can zoom through to the next locked door and carry on. It actually worked really well, and I'm actually going to carry on doing some heists because it's one of the content on this build that I'm actually enjoying doing. I think also in trade, the reason this build could work really well is because you could get it in SSF, but it's going to be a chore, is you can get 4 curses. So you can get 1 from your Ascendancy, you get 1 anyway, you can then take Whispers of Doom and you can get 1 on a chest. So you can end up having 4 curse on hit. You'd have something like an Impressance Amulet that gives you 1 aura curse. You'd then have a curse on hit glove, and then you'd have 2 different curse on hit rings. So you'd have something like Enfeeble, Temp Chains, Frostbite, and then Ellie Weakness. Those 4 curses are going to make the build really comfy when mapping. But again, you need to keep up the speed because it's no good having all these curses if you can't get near an enemy because they off-screen you with projectiles. And I think probably the more you juice maps, the more the build actually feels better because you're always going to have your flask charges up. You're always going to be able to move quickly and you can go from pack to pack, keeping up your flask charges. Whereas early on in the first few levels of maps where you might be just running the magic in the big open spaces, it can be very hard to keep up all your charges. As I say, in SSF, I'm not sure there's really a way without playing for absolutely ages to get this build going, because a lot of the stuff you do need from sort of higher tier red maps, you need to get some Eldritch currency. You definitely need to get sort of to level 90 to be able to pick up all the bits of the tree. And I'm not sure what the DPS is going to be like, but we'll find out in the next few days. So overall on the build, I've died 13 times, which isn't bad considering how squishy the build is with not a lot of life and no fizz mitigation and, as I said, no mobility. But it's far from comfy, but I really, really, really like it as a skill. I just wished it was a bit more viable in terms of early on when you've not got maybe the supporting gear and gems. I just wish it felt a little bit better. Maybe there was some extra AoE, or maybe when your Blade Vortex is up, you get an increased movement speed boost or something. So I need to have a look at alt quality gems. Again, not possible in SSF, but I haven't played the skill before, so I don't know what the alt quality gems do. And I'm a lunatic, so if this doesn't get touched in patch notes, I am tempted to start this in trade because the character ability standard was so much fun. It's only going to be for mapping. I'm not going to boss. It'll take down the pinnacle bosses and probably Maven, get some Void Stones, and then if I have to pay for an Uber Elder carry, then so be it. But it's just super fun to map with when you get everything going. It's just I don't think I would try it in SSF. Again, not anything I'd recommend to anyone else. It's quite a difficult build to league start, and is normally when people do this build, it's either a second build of the league, or maybe they'll start with a cold dot build that's really comfy, doesn't need gear, and then once you've grinded a bit of currency, you can then respec the Occultist to then go Cold Blade Vortex. That's it for this video. As I say, there'll definitely be another video coming out, because even though there are mega frustrations with playing this build, it's not a kind of build I've really played before, so I am really enjoying it, and it's a nice change from sort of raider attack builds and that sort of thing. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next one.